and also interspersed in that audio piece are letters that people have written to
to plants.
And they are from staff members, the scientists that we worked with, mostly people like the Botanic Gardens. There are a few that may have been written by Laura and some kids as well, but and it is about trying to get people's feelings and thoughts and communicating, the loss or, their worry and concern for these plants.
Wow, it's humanizing the whole debate, which is essential.
And then as well as that sound work, we are also running, we are actually running in-person workshops, which, we weren't sure whether we were able to. And we had our first workshop last Saturday, and that workshop is a process where people, we come to the exhibition, and we actually go and visit the rare plant seed orchard that the Seed Conservation Centre have set up to grow some of these rare plants to harvest more seeds for their seed bank. So we go out, we take people in the group to that orchard, and I made a booklet that people get at the beginning of the workshop, and that booklet is something where people can write their own plant notes. So there are prompts to write down, what you think the mood, what it looks like, or how they think they feel, things like that. And then there are spaces for people to draw the plants, and then there's also a space for people to write a letter to this particular plant. And then from that, we then took everyone, and then we found a space where people then drew their letters and their plants onto the ground in clay paint, which is ephemeral. And so they were their letters to these plants, hoping, wishing them well and hoping, or sometimes it's almost apologetic, that thing of we haven't done enough and we need to do more. So that happened last Saturday, and we were able to photograph those, but those letters are gone now because it's rained. So that's
cool though.
Yeah, and there'll be at least 2 more of those workshops, which will happen within the gardens as well, which people can come to and participate. That's the idea, is about bringing people in and having participation in the work and sharing our practice.
I think it's the 16th, because I was
yes
to go, but I can't.
Yeah, there's an evening
it'll
one.
Sell out quick too, because even your notes, your artist talk the other day, I was on a waiting list. So
okay,
I hope so.
We're also doing another one at the end of September. I think it's actually in the school holidays, so it's during the week. And that one, I don't know if we've got that one up online yet, but that's another one that we'll do.
You said you'd worked with Laura before.
Yep.
In a kind of general way, could you talk about collaboration and what really works for you, and what you find as rich? I'm just going to put your screen up at the same time.
Yep. So Laura and I first worked together quite a few years ago, where that was when I was getting back into my arts practice after having kids. I'd approached her. I was really interested in her the way that she works participatory, in a participatory manner, working with community. And I had a Guildhouse Limber Up mentorship with Laura, so that we could, work together and share ideas. And that was in 2018, I think. And then when that finished, and then we just, I remember we met up afterwards and we're like, well, what next? We both have we both have different approaches to how we work, but we also have a kind of shared interest of what we're wanting to communicate. So I suppose it was almost like that thing of being able to team up together and to be able to do that together. In some ways can make things easier by working as a team. So that was at the end of 2019 when we decided to apply for the collections project together. And we've been working together for that ever since. Last year we also worked together, because of our collections project was delayed, we put together an application to Vital Statistics Adhocracy Program, and we made a work about the grey mangroves, and that was also with the musicians as well. And that was a process of, we hadn't ever done anything like that before, so it was almost like we were the blind leading the blind, launching into something we've never done before. But there's something really beautiful about having these similar shared interests but different approaches of coming together and making work together. At the end of this, like making work for this exhibition that's at the MEB, we actually, as well as working together on the audio work, we actually collaborated in our drawing work. And that's something I really struggled with to begin with, because I think it's something we hadn't really done much of, and it was something we'd been meaning to do. And then I think when it came to the crunch of, oh, we need to swap drawings and get this moving, I almost, had a moment of freak out of going, oh shit, I can't draw into someone else's drawing. And just like you do with all sorts of things. And then, but then it was, just like anything else, I gave it a crack, and then it started evolving. But I did feel like that what did happen quite late in the piece before our exhibition. And yeah, it was a challenge. And I think, but the big thing is I remember thinking about it going, I don't know if I can do it. And then I just reached out to Laura and I talked about it, and then we talked it through. And I think her big thing was, you just need to launch in and give it a crack. And I think in retrospect, I think it was a lot about my confidence, not being confident in my practice and, all of that sort of funny little stuff.
And consequently, you've got these very colourful works, which is
quite
different from your other work.
Yeah. So I think, that was one of my challenges is I mean, I didn't actually end up using the colour. Laura brought in the colour, but it was, something that I struggled with, and I'm quite restrictive in the way I have my work, and Laura's not like that at all. So that was a really interesting way of, I had to let go a lot and loosen up, and but it was a really good process. And I think, I'm really keen. There's stuff now we've done that work, and now I'm like, oh, okay, well, what next? There's a couple of pieces in that show that I'd like to, I felt like, oh, that was just the beginning. What if we do another one of that, and what would that be? So that's
exciting.
Yeah. Exciting.
You've got some other images. Did you want to talk to those? Oh, hang on. I don't know how to go back to this. Here it is.
Yeah. So this project is another project I've been doing this year and a bit last year on the side. This is actually, if you go back to the slide just before that. So this is a piece that I made in 2019, and this is my first Memorial for Forgotten Plants piece that I made. And this is a piece that I made where I wanted to document all of the plant, or, draw all of the plants that belonged in the plant community that was in the Adelaide CBD. I made this work during a residency that I had at the Mill, which is based in the city in Angus Street. And I was researching, where the Mill is based and what plant community would have been there before, before the city was there. The Adelaide CBD actually had 4 different plant communities within the CBD, because of the river and different places in the city, there were different kind of areas. So this is the grey box woodland, and I think there's about, 80 or 90 different plant species that would have grown in that area. So I drew all of them, which was quite a big process. Alongside, when I had that residency, I also had workshops where people could come in and draw their own versions of those plants as well. I don't have an image of that, but alongside this work, there was also a growing wall of drawings that community members had also drawn. that kind of went alongside that. And from that work, over the last few years have been, in different places. I'll go somewhere else and I'll research different plant communities in that area. But from this particular piece of the work from the Adelaide CBD, I was asked last year to be a part of the Parklands project, which is something that Oscar Arts was producing, and that was a project having arts interventions in the Adelaide Parklands. I think it was collaboratively with Trees for Life and someone else, I can't quite remember, but I was pulled in quite at the last minute of the project. I think it was about a month or so out before it was supposed to happen that I was pulled in. So I pretty much pulled on my research that I was already working on. And then I pulled in my friend Belinda Gellert, who is also she's a musician who I had been working with. And we were creating an audio piece that it was an audio memorial piece that would be performed in the Parklands. So we created a soundscape, and in that soundscape, I'm reading out all of the names of those plants, and that we'd created that work to that point, and then that was supposed to happen in November last year when we had that 3-day lockdown. So that event got cancelled.
Very bad timing.
But it was bad timing, but then in some ways, because the work that I was making was so rushed, it then, gave pause and then went, I actually want to take this a bit further. So from that, I then actually applied for Arts SA funding to further develop that piece, and working with a dancer, Tanya Vogues, I wanted to bring her in because I had worked with her a little bit, to bring in more of a performance element and movement. It's something that I have never really done. So it was having someone who has that experience. She's done a lot of participatory she's a dancer, but has done a lot of participatory performance pieces. So it was bringing her in on this piece to make it more of a performance piece. So I was successful in getting that Arts SA money to work with Belinda and Tanya to further develop that piece. The Parklands project was on, when was it, May this year, where we were able to present that work twice in that. I do actually have a video link that Tanya has made. It's a bit rough, but if I send that to you, I'm not sure whether that actually it's a bit hard to explain the work, and I was thinking that might be a better way.
On your website, or
I don't think it is, but I'll copy it into the chat.
Okay.
It's something that we still need to, I don't think I've got the correct credits to funding and that sort of stuff on there, but it gives you a bit of an idea of what it looks a bit, what it looked a bit like. And we'll be actually presenting this again in a month or so as well. Not sure if the sound's coming through very well, but it gives you a bit of an idea.
Memorial for Forgotten Plants.
So on all of those scrolls that I'm handing out are all the names of the plants are written on them. And people also, before the performance, wrote a lot of the names of those plants on those scrolls as well.
Acacia, paradoxa, kangaroo thorn. Acacia, bignantha, golden wattle, Simlandia, Wiji Wiji, Allocasuarina, verticillata, Drupichia. Ranunculus lapaceus, Australian buttercup. Rumex, brownie, hooked duck. Rumex demurus, wiry duck. Ritidosperma, wallaby grass.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are presenting that again at the end of September as part of the Nature Festival, and that'll be at the Botanic Gardens. And we have a little bit more development time to maybe, that was the first time we'd ever performed that work, so we may spend a bit of time, there are a few things that we did that we thought, we'll change that or improve or, so that will be, that's what I'll be mainly working on over the next few weeks before the end of September, doing that. But it is quite different work for me. I'm usually drawing, so a lot of it I feel quite out of my comfort zone. but I also feel there's something about the music, and it's something about Belinda's music that really moves me, and sometimes I feel like that is another tool to what's the word, like draw on people's emotions to think about some of these things. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's something, Belinda and I have been wanting to work together for years, so it's something to be able to finally kind of come together and do that. And I feel like the way we work together, because we have completely different practices in terms of the way Laura and I work together. It's kind of like this thing where we feed each other. So for this particular project, I was coming to Belinda with this already formed idea of, this is what I was wanting to do. I'm wanting to make quite a sad memorial piece to all of these plants that aren't so much in our landscape. They're not gone, but they're not in a lot of our landscape, in general. And so she was able to then, just take that straight away and make work. And then from what she makes, I then get even more inspired, and then I kind of work back into things and change things. And then having Tanya come on board has also been fantastic, because a lot of that spatial movement and things I wouldn't have been able to do and know how things work. And there's lots of little things that she knows about just working in performance that I have no idea about, of how you set things up and how you have plans and
just having everyone touch that, just having everyone from the audience
involved. Yeah. And that was the whole idea, is that we really wanted to have something that brings people together.
Like a funeral, when you walk past and throw the dirt.
Yeah, the flowers. Dirt. Something a little bit like that. I mean, that was the first time when we did that at that day, was the first we had played with it, and we'd played with it with a small number of people, but we'd never performed it with that amount of people. And it was terrifying, because we just had no idea whether people were going to engage and come in. I did have an assistant. I had Adele Souzas, who works at the mill, who worked with us, and she wasn't in the performance, but she was able to quietly corral.
Oh, I think I saw her in the background.
Yeah, pull people in, because people are I mean, I know I'm the same. If I'm at a performance, I always like to, stay back. So it's about just trying to pull people in and making people feel comfortable, and having people involved. And once you have a couple of people doing that, then more people become involved. Yeah. So
your work is fascinating. I could listen to you talk forever. How do you balance life, an arts practice? I caught you earlier trying to get the kids to do something and trying to get all your housework done.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know what, the big thing is I have a really supportive partner. I think if I didn't have a supportive partner, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and that's support in many, many forms. I mean, it's a real juggle in terms of doing everything, but it goes in waves too. I have a supportive partner. We're a team in terms of, bringing up our kids and doing stuff around the house. He also supports me financially, and has supported me financially for the past few years, in terms of, I mean, I have spent a lot more time with the children, and it's been strange, because we've kind of feel like we're in that weird traditional role of but he has a stable job, and is able to do that. But I feel like things have gotten really out of whack this year, with leading up to this exhibition. That I think was really challenging. We had a few family challenges, in terms of my son having concussion, and then dislocating his thumb on a number of occasions, which actually now needs surgery. And there was quite a chunk of time where I was supposed to be, working, and after his concussion, he couldn't go to school full time for 5 or 6 weeks. So, those things that happen in your life, and you're suddenly like, oh shit, I don't have that time that I thought I would. And so I felt like the whole time up until this exhibition, I was just catching up, and I was working every day for, I don't know, the last couple of months, where I was just working every weekend, because it was just the volume of work and trying to get it all done. And that's hard. I think my kids were saying a number of times, when are you just gonna, I was around, but then I wasn't around. It's that thing of not always being able to be present.
This is not good news. I mean, you said from February, 24 drawings, and they're quite large, aren't they?
They were 12, so it was 12 each, 12 drawings each. Yeah.
And so that meant weekends.
Yeah, I don't normally, the way I like to work my practice is I don't normally work on the weekends. I like to actually have those free for family time, but it just got to a point where I just didn't have the time. And then, the lockdown happened, and I pulled everything from the studio, brought that home, set up in the bedroom, because I mean we don't have a big house, so it was, you know, about where I could set that up and just leave it kind of.
Do you work off-site? Your studio's off-site?
Yeah, I have a studio down at Post Office Projects in Port Adelaide, which I really, really love. It's a beautiful space, a great community, and lots of natural light. And I like working off-site because I don't have space at home, and it's good to work, do the work, and then come home. But yeah, with the lockdown that we had recently, I had to pull everything home, and that was at crunch time. You know, we were working to. That must have been a few weeks out before we had to have everything finished. So it was a little bit stressful in terms of having the kids home, trying to get all that work done. I mean, it was fine, but you know, it was challenging. And then, you know, my partner was at home, he's trying to work, we're all trying to work. And, well, everyone was doing the same, you know, it wasn't, so it's a juggle. I do find that, the life juggle, I need to actually find a job. That's what I need to, now this show's over, I've realised I don't really make much of a living from my practice. I'd like to contribute more financially to my household. So yeah, I just need to find something part-time that I can do that supports, you know, helps contribute to my family, but not a too big a job that I can't do my arts practice. It's what we're all chasing.
The ultimate key that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Leading on from that, I know that there's going to be questions about your funding success. Is there some tips or advice or ways that you approach things that you think would be helpful for others to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably had, I suppose 50-50 success. I haven't applied for heaps of grants. For the collections project, Laura and I did apply for Australia Council funding for the project, which we didn't get. And you can't apply with the collections projects, you can't apply for Arts SA funding to support that because it's already funded by Arts SA.
Oh, they didn't say that the other day.
They didn't, unless it's changed. It may have changed. Okay. But that is something to check up on, and that's really hard because Australia Council funding is so much more competitive. I mean, I thought we put in a good application to Australia Council, but there's not a lot of money.
You were able to utilise everything you'd put together for the Guildhouse application.
Yes, yeah. We did get Australia Council funding for the audio piece in the end.
Oh, okay.
But that wasn't, so we had applied for project funding to support it, which we didn't get. But then COVID hit, and then we applied for the ADAPT funding, which was adapting our practice. And that was when we were adapting our workshop practice to, you know, have an audio experience. And that we were successful in getting. And I recently applied that's the first time I've gotten Arts SA funding for the memorial work. The tips I would give is have a good group of people around you. I'm not a great writer. I'm not particularly good at articulating the ideas that I want to have, but what I do is I get all those ideas down, and then I have a community of people that help. You know, they'll read it and go, no, you need to cut all that out. You need to hone it down. The big thing is you need to make it really simple. You need to know exactly what you're doing. I think, just really.
They kind of said that about the collections application the other night.
Yeah, have really clear ideas and just have lots of people read it, because the more people that read it that don't know, that aren't in your head, and they read it, because the number of people that read it and went, well, what are you wanting to do? And you're like, oh shit, okay, I need to reword that. Yeah. I mean, it's so much work. That's the other thing. I mean, it's like a full-time job for almost like a 2-week period of hard slog work. And then, you know, you don't even know whether you're going to get it or not. So, but the more you do, the more applications you do, it's like you've got this library of language of stuff, which I find quite helpful once you've done, even if you don't think you've got a chance, it's, you know, sometimes it's worth doing, because you do that process and you then go, okay, I didn't get that, but I still actually have all this writing about my work that I can use for, you know, a few different things. Yeah, I know working with Laura and doing those applications collaboratively were really great. I mean, you know, it's that thing of something, you know, a task shared makes it a bit easier. That was really great working with her, you know, going backwards and forwards on you know, applications. That was really helpful. Yeah.
We've got about 15 minutes. I've got more questions, but there might be people out there that want to ask some questions before we lose you. Is there anyone out there or any questions for Louise? You can put the question in the chat. You don't have to ask it yourself. If no one's going to ask, I was going to ask about the Oscar, was it Oscar Arts funding that you got for the Parklands project? I don't know anything about that.
Oh, so that was Oscar what is that, open space creative, gosh, I'm not sure what can't remember what it stands for. So they're an organisation. They used to be Knee-High Puppeteers.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's headed up with Paul Gazzola. So what that was, I mean, it wasn't funding as such. So the Parklands project was actually an initiative of a number of individuals, I think, who don't work in the arts, and they were wanting to have an arts festival within the Parklands. They work in, actually, I'm not too sure.
Environmental planning or something.
Yeah, and they had approached Laura Wheels and I think Rosina Possingham, saying they wanted to do this project, and then I think Laura said, oh, this is bigger than what I can, you know, produce. And then I think from that, they then took it to Oscar, because Oscar's a company that can take things on and then, you know, produce things. It's worth looking at their website. They've got quite a number of different projects across art forms. And I was actually a bit of a last minute ringing to that project. So they had an artist pull out or something like that. And it really was literally a month or two out from the presentation.
Wow, you seem like you fit it so well. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's why it happened, was because Paul had known that I had already been doing this research. So I'd already had this stuff. So I think that's kind of why it worked. So yeah, they then pulled me in, and I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money. It was just, it's almost like a little bit of seeding money to make something new. Yeah, I mean, the amount of time, you know, you don't really get paid for your hours. It's just kind of something to get you started. Yeah.
We didn't have a look at your biggest influences apart from plants.
Yeah, well,
and how did you end up with plants as
well? I mean, it's something that I would say, you know, dates back to when I was a kid. I've always been really interested in plants and just really been interested in the Australian bush. I moved around a bit as a kid, and I think always, for some reason, I've always known that so much of our bush has been lost. I remember living in Port Pirie at one point, and we would always do that trip from Port Pirie to Adelaide quite a lot to visit family. And I remember as quite a young child, like sitting in the car and looking out the window and just going, oh, fuck, you know, where's all this vegetation gone? It's just a thin strip. And but it took me a really, really long time to make work about that. That's always been in my head, and it's always been a passion of mine, and always been a passion to, you know, go out bush. I think my time in the Northern Territory helped spur that on, of being, you know, living in Tennant Creek and then having the bush just there. And, you know, it felt like the bush crept in a lot more to the town than it does here in Adelaide, depending on where you live in Adelaide, I suppose.
And it's a fairly unique part of the world.
Yeah. And just being around that space and and getting to know the plants and the vegetation, you know, there, which is quite different to here, got me quite passionate. And then I remember moving back to Adelaide, and that was that real stark contrast of being up there, moving to suburban Adelaide, and you'd walk around the streets and all you see are roses and agapanthus, and I just went, oh, far out, like. And then started trying to research, well, what did used to grow in Adelaide? And then realising it wasn't as simple as what grew in Adelaide. It's all the different plant communities. And then I just, I suppose, have gone on, you know, down that rabbit warren. And I do feel like this is all I'll make work about for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I don't know, but yeah, just, and I also see myself, I don't often like to see myself as a visual artist. I like to see myself more as a service provider, or someone that is able to tell stories about the plants, or to help. In some ways, I want to plant, this sounds a bit cliche, but planting seeds of curiosity in other people about these plants, so that then they can then go on their journey and be,
wow.
you know, maybe spark a bit of passion in them, or yeah, does that make sense?
Well, it's interesting to bring up that idea about what is the role of
an
artist.
Yeah. I don't see myself as someone just making art to go in a gallery. I see myself as, like a service provider, almost like a service for the community. I don't know if I'm doing that particularly well, but that's what I kind of strive to do. And I think as a byproduct of that, I sometimes do make artworks that go in galleries, but the thing that drives me is to be able to make work, or have people involved in work or experiences that spurs them on to something, or makes them think about something. Yeah.
Oh, well, you've certainly done that to me.
Nikki, could I ask a question
Sure.
of Louise, please, just quickly? Two things. One, hi Louise, I met you at Nebula last week.
I'm not sure who I'm talking to.
We can't
Sorry.
see you, Emma.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Sorry, video. Here we are. Hi.
Ah, yes.
She is.
Oh, yeah, Nebula. Yep.
Yes. So I'm out in the garden listening to this, which kind of feels appropriate. I'll come inside. Two things. One, I wanted to ask, how much is reading a part of your practice? Because it seems like it's very research-based, and do you find that there's a lot of reading in your practice? That's my first question. And my second question is, and I asked this of Laura as well the day that she spoke to us, with a lot of your work responding to environmental concerns and climate change, how do you manage just your mental health with that? Like, it's really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, and I find for myself, when I'm trying to make work around those subjects, I find it really hard to even make the work. Because it's all just feels like the world is on my shoulders. So if you could just maybe respond to those two things, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll respond to that one just now. I find it really hard. And I think within the collections project and working on that work, I got quite overwhelmed by the volume of plants that are threatened and endangered. And almost to the point where it was almost like a panic of, I can't do all of those plants justice. And I can't do, in talking with especially talking with the volunteers of people who dedicate their life to this, and talking to them, and I felt this real need to do what they do, like be able to spotlight what they do, but then also realizing I don't know if I can, and it's almost out of, like, particularly in this one exhibition, I can't get across, and I find that really hard. In some ways, I just have to, I don't know what it is, but just do one little thing at a time. I do get quite overwhelmed. I was talking about this with actually Sarah Waters, who wrote our catalogue essay, who is also another artist that is, you know, similar research. And I think we said the same thing. It was at the end of our exhibition opening just a couple of weeks ago. And I think that was when the climate report had just come out. And we were both, she was talking about that real visceral feeling of anxiety of when things go wrong. And I have that. And in some ways, I don't know, that part of me feels like I can't go down that rabbit warren too much, because then I can't do anything, because I feel like sometimes, yeah, I don't know, I feel quite helpless. And I also feel like I don't know if what I do is really making a difference. And I think, oh, maybe I just need to be out in the bush and actually be, you know, in the ground. Do I need to be just doing bush care work? You know, something a bit more practical. I don't know. I don't think I have a particularly good answer for that. I know things that I do, like I volunteer for Trees for Life. I grow seedlings every year. I try and get out onto, there's a site in the parklands that I work in. I haven't been actually out there for quite a few months because I've been so busy with the show, but I like to be able to do that. And I grow a lot of native plants in my garden, and I feel like those are the things, in terms of my mental health, those are the things that help me feel like I don't know, try and do something. I also have taken up exercise recently, and that, I mean, in terms of mental health, that is something that really helps me. In terms of your other question about reading, I kind of chop and change a little bit. I go through times where I do read a bit. There was a really amazing book, if you haven't read it already. I actually mostly listened to it as an audio, but was Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Val Kimmer. And she's a First Nations American ecologist. And she writes a lot about different ways of thinking about managing the land and plants. It's a really beautiful book. And there was a lot of poetic things in there that I think spurn me on. But then I also get to a point where I'm making, and I can't read, or like I read a lot. I read a lot of novels, you know, I'm always reading novels, but they're not related to my work. But then I also get to a point where it's that thing of I feel like I don't have time to read anymore. I just have to make.
Yes.
It's hard. Another really great book that I read last year was, and she's supposed to be talking at the Nature Festival, Sophie Cunningham, and I can't think of the name of her book, but it's a whole book of essays about trees. So if you look her up, she lives in, I think she lives in Victoria. So she was supposed to obviously coming to Adelaide for the Nature Festival in September, but I don't know if that will happen or whether that will just be a video link. But I've booked a ticket through that. That was through the South Australian Writers Centre. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are a lot of, I know Sarah Waters also is another, she's an avid reader, and through her work with the fellowship, she would have a vast, fantastic like reading recommendation. And she comes from, I mean, she's an academic, so she also I'm not an academic, and she would do a lot of reading and research and that sort of thing. Laura's also a big reader as well. Yeah, I feel like my research is a bit more, I like to really look at the scientific data. That's what kind of gets me going, is going through all of that sort of stuff. That's what really interests me too. Yeah.
So that's kind of obvious in the exhibition too, with the way the plant notes vouchers are set up.
Yeah.
Can I just ask something quickly off the back of Emma's questions, which were excellent.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, Louise, if the fact that your work is so central, like the participatory nature of it is really central to what you do you think that helps with the mental health stuff, seeing people's response in an immediate sort of way?
I think so, and I think it does, and I think it I feel like I'm doing something. It's funny though, just I will say quickly, it's something that it doesn't come easily to me. I really struggle, and I don't like being out there necessarily doing the workshops, and leading up to them, I get really nervous and I struggle with them. But then when I do it, I do have
it's the reward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to see people's there's actually quite a few images from the letters that people wrote on my Instagram page and reading those last Saturday, it almost made me feel quite teary to see how people had engaged and then written their own experiences. It was really beautiful.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
And you're speaking again tomorrow, is that right?
Tomorrow? No.
Oh, that must be someone else, sorry.
No, yeah, I don't think so. Unless I've forgotten something.
It might have been Jane, I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think I am. No. Yeah, I hope not.
No, you got housework to do that the kids haven't done. Oh, well, it's been such a treat, Louise. And to grab you right in the middle of that work at the museum, it's fascinating. Like, I'd like to ask you more about how, when you sat down together, you and Laura, how you negotiated that environment. But I kind of can see that by looking at the work. So I recommend everyone to get there. How long will that work be up?
It's there till the end of October. So yeah, it's there for ages. And the audio, if you can't get there, you can go to, I think you showed it before, the Plant
on the Plant Notes website.
Yeah, if you can't get there, like the audio's on there, and you can just go into your backyard or go somewhere, in nature and listen to it. And send me feedback too, if you have any feedback for the audio, because, we're constantly trying to rejig stuff or, redo stuff. We're always keen to hear people's responses. Yeah.
Great segue. Donna's been putting our feedback link in, which is our reward. That's, we find that really useful. And you never know, we might be able to take this project and apply for some sort of way to make it a little bit more accessible. So please, everyone, if you could click on that link at some stage or copy it. It'll also be in the presentations. So at the end of the presentation, you can grab the link then. But we will wrap up and head to the next maker. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to